The sun hung low over the Arizona plains, casting long shadows across the Walker Ranch. Sam Walker, a man in his 40s, moved quietly among his cattle. Years of hard work had left his hands calloused, his face weathered, and his eyes deep with the kind of quiet sorrow that comes from loss. The ranch had been his life since his parents died, and after the death of his young wife, it had become the only home he truly knew. He rose before the sun, tended to the animals, and worked the land from dawn until dusk. The solitude, though sometimes heavy, had become familiar, a companion he did not resent. One hot afternoon, while checking the fences near the northern pasture, Sam saw movement by the edge of the woods. A figure appeared, half hidden in the heat shimmer of the desert. At first, he thought it might be a traveler. But as the figure stepped forward, he saw it was a young woman, her skin sun-kissed, her dark hair braided neatly down her back. She wore simple clothes, worn but clean, and her eyes carried a strength that surprised him. Sam's first thought was caution. Strangers rarely appeared here, but there was also a quiet dignity about her that gave him pause. "Hello," she called, her voice steady but careful. "I am looking for work." Sam studied her for a long moment. Most women in the area stayed with their families or townsfolk, rarely venturing alone into the desert. Something about her struck him, her posture, her calm courage, and the quiet sadness behind her eyes. "I'm Samuel Walker," he said finally. "I don't usually hire strangers. But if you're willing to work hard, you can stay." Her lips curved slightly in relief. "Thank you," she said. "I can do more than just work. I can help with chores, cooking, whatever is needed." Over the following days, she proved her words were true. She carried water, tended the animals, and mended fences with a steady hand. Sam noticed her careful attention to the cattle and how she moved with quiet confidence. Slowly, she began to earn his trust, and in turn, he offered small gestures of kindness. An extra slice of bread, a warm place by the fire. Sam had noticed a mark on her arm from the very beginning, but he did not mention it. At first, he thought it was a tattoo, perhaps a symbol of family or culture. It was a faint, curved scar, almost hidden beneath the sleeve of her shirt. Sometimes, in the sunlight, it caught his eye, and he wondered about its meaning. But the woman, whom he now knew as Naya, never spoke of it. Whenever he glanced at her arm, she subtly adjusted her clothing, as if the mark were a secret she had no wish to share. The ranch was quiet, the kind of quiet that allowed the wind to carry the distant sounds of birds and rustling grass. In this calm, Sam began to notice other things about Naya. She spoke little of her past, yet there was a wisdom in her words, a calm that only comes from surviving hardships. When she shared stories, they were about the land, the animals, and the old ways her people had lived. Sam listened, fascinated, learning things he had never known about survival in the harsh desert. One evening, as they repaired a section of fence together, Sam noticed a shadow cross Naya's face. She paused, hands gripping the wood tightly, eyes distant. "Are you all right?" he asked, gently. She looked at him and smiled faintly, but her eyes held a sadness he could not ignore. Sam nodded, understanding that there were parts of her life that belonged only to her. He decided to give her space, but his curiosity never faded. Over the following weeks, their bond grew. Not through words, but through shared labor and quiet companionship. They worked side by side under the scorching sun, and in the evenings, they shared small meals and brief conversations. The trust between them was building, a fragile bridge between two lonely hearts. Then came the day when Sam could no longer ignore the mark on her arm. They were sitting by the fire after a long day of work, the sky painted in shades of orange and purple. Naya reached for a pot of stew, her sleeve slipping slightly, and Sam caught a glimpse of the mark again. It was clearer now, faintly raised, with an odd pattern that made his stomach tighten. "May I ask," he began cautiously, "that mark on your arm, what is it?" Naya's eyes flickered, and for a moment, she looked away. The firelight danced across her face, highlighting the tension in her features. Sam held his breath, sensing the weight of what she might say. "It is not a tattoo," she said finally, her voice quiet but steady. "It is a brand from the auction." The words hung in the air like a heavy stone. Sam felt his chest tighten, his hands clenching at his sides. He had heard of auctions in towns where people, especially Native Americans, were treated as property, sold and traded like livestock. He had never imagined that someone he now cared for deeply had survived such a fate. Tears welled in Sam's eyes before he could stop them. He turned away slightly, ashamed that he wept, but the emotion was too strong to hold back. The sorrow for the suffering Naya had endured, the anger at the cruelty of the world, and the helplessness of having done nothing for her past, it all collided inside him. Naya watched him, her own eyes reflecting both pain and understanding. She did not move to comfort him immediately. She had learned long ago that some wounds ran deep, and some grief needed space. But there was also trust in her gaze, a silent acknowledgement that he did not judge her, that he did not see her as broken, but as someone who had survived. After a long pause, Sam spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "I am so sorry," he whispered. I can't imagine what you went through." Naya's hand brushed lightly against his, a gesture both tender and grounding. "It is part of me, yes, but it does not define me. What matters is here," she said, placing a hand over her heart. "And here," she added, touching his chest. In that moment, Sam realized that their connection was no longer just employer and worker. It was two people who had faced loneliness, loss, and suffering, now finding solace in each other. The fire crackled between them, warming more than just their bodies. It seemed to light the beginning of something fragile but real, a bond built on trust, understanding, and shared humanity. From that day on, the mark on Naya's arm was no longer something Sam saw as a scar or a symbol of pain. It was a testament to her resilience, her strength, and her courage. And though the world outside the ranch could be cruel, within the boundaries of that land, there was a growing sense of safety, respect, and even the possibility of healing. As the sun set and the desert sky darkened, Sam felt a shift inside him. The loneliness that had weighed on his heart for years was beginning to lift, replaced by a quiet hope. He did not know what the future would hold, but he knew one thing. Naya's presence had changed his life in ways he could not yet name. And somehow, in the stillness of the desert night, with stars beginning to shine overhead, he felt that maybe, just maybe, they could both find a kind of peace they had never known before. The mornings on the Walker Ranch grew brighter, not just from the sun rising over the desert, but from a sense of quiet life returning to its corners. Sam moved through his chores with a steadier heart, feeling the subtle change Naya's presence had brought. She worked beside him, her movements precise and calm, her laughter occasionally breaking the heavy silence that had long clung to the ranch. It was not a loud joy, but one that seeped slowly into the spaces of their lives, like water flowing into dry soil. Naya, for her part, seemed lighter too. The ranch, with its wide-open spaces and steady routines, gave her a sense of safety she had not known in years. She spoke more now, sharing small stories of her childhood, of the games she had played, and the traditions her family had cherished. There was still pain in her eyes at times, memories that surfaced like shadows at sunset. But Sam never pressed. He simply listened, offering a steady presence that spoke more than words could. One afternoon, as they repaired a section of fence along the western pasture, Naya paused and looked out over the land. "It is beautiful here," she said softly, her voice carrying a note of wonder. The land, it heals in ways people do not always notice. Sam leaned against the fence post, watching her. It is more than beautiful, he said. It gives you strength if you let it. And it is safer here than many places in the world. Naya smiled faintly. Safe. Yes. That is something I have not felt for a long time. She glanced down at the brand on her arm, then back at Sam. Thank you for that, Samuel, for giving me safety and work and for trusting me. Sam's chest tightened. He had always worked alone, keeping people at a distance, fearing attachments that could end in loss. But with Naya, fear had begun to give way to something else, care, concern, and something he did not yet have a word for. He nodded, his expression solemn but warm. We trust each other, he said simply. That is all that matters here. Over the following weeks, their daily work settled into a rhythm that felt almost like a dance. Naya taught Sam ways to care for the animals differently, sharing techniques that her family had used for generations. In return, Sam showed her how to manage the land, track weather patterns, and keep the ranch running efficiently. It was a partnership, built on respect, shared labor, and an unspoken understanding that each had survived hardships the other could only imagine. Yet, the past always had a way of whispering back. Naya sometimes had moments of unease, sudden flinches at unexpected noises or fleeting shadows. Sam learned to recognize them, gently guiding her back to calmness without words, simply offering his presence. He could not erase the memories, but he could help her feel safe in the present. One evening, as the sun dipped behind distant mesas, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Sam and Naya sat on the porch, sharing a simple meal. The ranch was quiet except for the low hum of crickets and the occasional call of a distant bird. Naya's hand rested lightly on her lap, the brand on her arm catching the last rays of sunlight. Samuel, she began quietly, I have been thinking about my past and about what I can do now. I have survived. Yes, but there is still more I want to give. Sam looked at her, his eyes soft but attentive. And what is that? He asked. I want to live freely, she said, to help others if I can, to honor those who could not survive, and to find peace. Her voice trembled slightly, but she did not look away. Sam reached out, placing his hand over hers. You can do all of that, he said, and you do not have to do it alone. The words hung between them, simple but powerful. In that moment, the brand on Naya's arm no longer felt like a mark of shame or pain. It was a symbol of survival, of strength, of endurance. Sam did not see her as broken. He saw her as whole, resilient, and brave. And Naya, for the first time in many years, felt the weight of her past lessen, replaced by a quiet sense of hope. Life on the ranch continued, each day a step toward healing. Sam and Naya worked together, shared meals, and even began to plant a small garden, a symbol of new beginnings. They laughed more often now, the sound of their voices blending with the rustle of wind and the low murmur of cattle. The routines, once just chores, became rituals of connection, ways to rebuild trust and confidence in a world that had often been cruel. One day, Sam received word of a nearby town auction, the kind where Naya had once been taken. Memories of her story flared in his mind, and he felt a surge of determination. He rode to the town and managed to gather the papers related to her past captivity. With careful attention and persistence, he legally secured her freedom, ensuring that the world could no longer claim her as anything less than herself. When he returned to the ranch and handed the papers to Naya, her eyes filled with tears. She held them close, then looked at Sam, her gaze steady. You have given me a gift I never thought I would have again, she said softly. Freedom. And a chance to live without fear. Sam nodded, feeling the same swell of emotion he had felt when he first learned of her brand. He realized that healing was not just about escaping the past, but about creating a life where trust, care, and love could exist. And in that life, they both had a place. As the weeks turned into months, the bond between them grew deeper. They shared quiet evenings by the fire, discussed plans for the ranch, and supported each other through small challenges. Sam found joy in Naya's laughter and in her ability to see beauty in the desert, in the sky, and in the simple rhythms of daily life. Naya found a home she had never known, a place where her voice mattered, and where her past was honored but not allowed to define her. Their relationship became a partnership in the truest sense, built on mutual respect, shared hardship, and growing affection. Sam no longer felt the emptiness that had lingered in his heart for so long. Naya no longer felt the fear that had shadowed her steps for years. Together, they found a way to move forward, each day a testament to resilience and hope. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Sam stood with Naya near the edge of the ranch, watching the sky turn gold and purple. "Do you remember the first day you came here?" he asked softly. Naya nodded. "Yes. I was afraid, and tired, and unsure if anyone would accept me. Thank you for watching. We were one come. Lake, we were one. We were one come." Sam smiled. "You found a place here. And you found someone who cares." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "I did. And I am grateful. More than words can say." Sam placed a hand over hers again, feeling the warmth of her skin and the quiet certainty of their bond. "And I am grateful too, for your trust and for your strength." As night fell and stars began to twinkle overhead, they stood together in silence, letting the quiet of the desert wrap around them. The past was still there, remembered but not feared. The brand on Naya's arm was no longer a symbol of suffering, but a mark of survival, courage, and endurance. And in the shared stillness of the ranch, they both knew that, finally, they had found a home, not just a place, but a life, a connection, and a future built on trust and hope.